And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so delighted to welcome today the incredible New York Times bestselling author, Lorenzo Carcaterra, here to tell us about his brand new book, Nonna Maria, and the case of the beautiful island of Ischia in Italy. So welcome, Lorenzo. Tell us about this book.
Oh, thank you. This is a novel that grew out of my previous book was called Three Dreamers, and it dealt with my Nonna, the real Nonna, and my wife and my mom, and how they each affected my life. And out of that grew this idea about how about we turn the real Nonna Maria into a fictional Nonna Maria, contemporary. She died in 1975, contemporary, and have her solve crimes on the island of Ischia, which, at first I thought, I don't know, seems I needed to think about it, and not for long, for a day or so, and then it made sense. It completely, you do that Italian salute where you go, oh, that makes sense, because the real Nonna Maria had all the attributes of a terrific detective. She was, first of all, she had cool characteristics to use. She wore the widow's black. She drank 14 cups of espresso a day, but not just normal espresso. She put 3 bits of chocolate in it, a little shot of brandy, and 3 sugars. So that's a good, for a character, that's kind of a cool thing to play with. And also in the evening, she would switch to wine. She never drank water. She was not book smart, obviously, but she was intuitively smart, which again is a great tool for a detective. She had tons and tons of friends. So then I also, since I've spent so much time on the island, I said, you know what? Rather than just make up these characters, I will use real people and make them fictional characters, just like I'm doing with Nonna Maria. So pretty much every character you read in the novel is based on a real person. For example, the captain of the Carabinieri, Paolo Marino, is my cousin. He's not a Carabinieri, he's a writer in Milan, but that's, so the pirate exists, the Presidente exists, all these guys I used in the book, people I used in the book, Sarah D'Ambro, the wine company, exists in Ischia. And then I just thought, it'd be fun. So you're playing with real people, just fictionalizing them. And then the difficult thing was coming up with the 2 crimes. It's a relatively safe island. But once I came up with the murder, and also I didn't want her to be, Dirty Harriet. She's not shooting people up or anything. So she needed every case she gets involved with is linked to one of her friends, through friendship, because that's her whole key, was friendship. And she would do anything for her friends, and her friends would do anything for her. It's that kind of place. And also she had another cool thing. She would never ask you a personal question, no matter how innocent the question was. But by the same token, she would not want a personal question asked of her, which is also kind of a nice trait of a detective. He gets to know you, and she gets to know you in a cop-like way. So she has to work in league with the Carabinieri. She's not putting cuffs on anybody. She's not gonna, but she works her side. Basically, she works her side, and he works his side, and together, they solve crimes.
Well, it is such a charming book, and it's making me want to book a flight to Italy ASAP. So I can't wait to get into every delicious detail.
That's right. She was a great cook as well. Yes, she was a great cook.
Exactly. And as an Italian woman myself, I relate. So I can't wait to get into every detail. I just want to welcome everybody who's watching with us. So we are streaming live to 6 different destinations, as we always are here across Facebook and YouTube. So welcome, friends. No matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time. You know how it works on Mystery Monday, because Mondays can be murder. This is your time to talk to these authors. So ask the amazing New York Times bestselling author, Lorenzo, anything you want. Ask him about his process, his Nonna, 14 cups of espresso. I need to know this with brandy and chocolate in the coffee. I need to know this recipe. His summers in Italy.
Yeah. You don't want that recipe. Her nephew was the island doctor. He was amazed that she was still alive. He said, because that coffee was it's a heart clutcher. And she had this theory, which a lot of people on Ischia have, that if it's a very, very hot day, a super hot, humid August day, if you drink something very hot like this coffee down, it actually cools your body off. I tried it once and it looked like I had malaria. I was sweating so much. So I don't know how true that is, but for Nona always looked cool. She never she never was sweating much. So it must work on some level.
Well, that is, I've heard that thing about the hot, drinking a hot beverage during a hot day cools your body. I tried it. It did not work for me. I need the icy drink,
Yeah,
Lorenzo.
they don't like ice. My grandmother said she gave it. She doesn't. She never drank water. She said water was for plants. And but at one time I was just really thirsty, so reluctantly she poured some water. And I said, "Can I get some ice for the water?" And because it's room temperature water, and they do not believe in ice cubes. It's like, oh, no,
No,
that's
there's no, yeah, they do not, in Europe in general, they're not ice people. They're a room temperature
I mean,
beverage.
you know what it is? It's a modern island, but
Yeah.
it's in so many ways, it's practically medieval. I mean, the medicine, except for uh, uh, my cousin Agostino, who was a great doctor, he was one of those guys who literally he had offers after medical school from every school and hospital in Bologna, in Rome, and Florence. He could have gone anywhere, and instead he said, "I'm going back to Ischia to take care of my people." And so, other than him, though, the medicine is practically medieval, and I know this from firsthand. I got hurt. I've been going there every year since I was 14. So, it's medieval medicine. Yet they all live to like 90, 95, and seem perfectly healthy. And they eat pizza, they eat pasta, they eat tons of bread,
Yeah.
um, and they're healthy. I mean, I can't imagine it's just that evening stroll they take that burns all those calories. So it must be something to the lifestyle. Everything's fresh. That's one good thing.
Everything's fresh. You got a lot of fish. Everything in moderation. The Mediterranean's, yeah. My my Nona and all of my little aunties lived to
Yeah.
95 to 99 to 100. Those little old Italian ladies live forever. Oh my goodness. We have so many people saying hi. Leslie Marquitas joining us from Canada, giving us her signature. Hello, Canadian. Hello, Leslie. Welcome to the conversation. So great to have you. Anissa saying hello, Sarah and Lorenzo. I'm so excited to hear more about this book. Anissa, welcome to the
Hi,
conversation.
how are you?
Isabel says, I just received my copy. I haven't read it
Excellent.
yet, but I'm so looking forward to it. Isabel, thank you so much for being here. She would like to, she said, that is a lot of espresso that Nonna Carcaterra drank. She wants to know, Lorenzo, do you drink espresso or any coffee while writing your books? Yeah, give us the scoop on, give us
Yeah,
the scoop on
I'm
your
not as
coffee.
tough as Nona. I drink, not to sound like a complete wimp, I drink 2 cups of decaf coffee a day with low-fat milk, no sugar. And sometimes if I do have espresso, actually, I have it without sugar. So Nona would be appalled to see how I drank my coffee.
Yeah,
I mean, decaf to her I mean, she probably wouldn't even know what that was.
yeah.
And if she
What are you
did,
drinking? Folgers instant coffee over there? Come on, Lorenzo.
yeah, she would not be happy. My drinking Newman's Own organic coffee. But
No.
she so yeah, but I do occasionally, and but the truth is, when I am in Ischia, you take over wherever you are. When I am in Ischia, I do have espresso. I like ice espresso a lot. That's great. And
But Nona wouldn't like the ice.
she wouldn't like the ice. Yeah, that would upset her. And but if you don't tell, I won't tell. So we're good.
Now, Lorenzo, if you usually drink the 2 cups of organic Newman's Own decaf, and
Yeah.
then in Ikea, you step it up to the espresso, are your hands shaking like
No,
a
it doesn't.
80s
I
hair
mean,
band?
I don't do decaf out of health reasons. Actually, well, maybe I do. My doctor said if you drink, I don't have high blood pressure or anything. Nona had a little elevated blood pressure, which her nephew, the doctor, would always say, "Well, you know what, Nona, Zia, if you cut from 14 to maybe 4, I wouldn't have to give you any pills for the blood pressure." She said, "Give me the pill," which she would take with wine. That was her deal. She said, "I'll take the pill, but I can't take it with water." So, and they do think she was a tough lady. Sometimes she just would, it was a big pill. She would just swallow it without water or coffee. I'd say, no, I could never do that. She goes, Americans. And, so I said, all right. Now, the only thing I did have to change about her from the Three Dreamer, from the real Nona, was she lived through World War II and has suffered loss and was involved in the black market. The Nazis had occupied Iskisha. She had all these amazing adventures. But I couldn't do that if Nona is present day, which means she had to be born in like 52, 53, around there. So I attribute those stories. I still wanted to use some of them. I attributed them to her mother when she would tell her daughters that. So that's one of the flips from real life to fiction.
Very cool to get to hear about the difference between the real life Nonna Carcaterra and the Nonna Maria of that lives on our pages. Anissa would like to know, Lorenzo, what was the toughest scene to write in this book and why? Great question.
That is a great question. The toughest scene, I guess, was I think trying to make sure that, there were toughest scenes because the murder, she doesn't have forensic and it's not, she's a CSI person. She's not working with Mark Harmon. So I think the toughest scene was her getting involved in the murder, which in reality, the Carabinieri probably, the fictional Carabinieri knew her connections, knew her expertise, knew that because he came from Florence and stationed in Ischia, he wouldn't have the same trust that she had. So I think the toughest scene was him kind of letting her in the door to say, okay, I'm going to let this happen. I'm going to let your plan to catch the bad guy happen, but I'm going to step in if something goes south. So that was a difficult scene in the way, because normally a cop wouldn't let a civilian do all of that, especially an elderly woman who walks with a limp and has white hair and
Nona.
And so that was a scene where it had to be, but it was a good scene in the sense that it showed mutual trust, that she knew I'm not going to overstep my bounds. He trusted her enough to know that she wouldn't overstep her bound. But he also kind of overstepped his police bounds by letting her do what she was going to do. A real Carabinieri, in all honesty, probably would have said, "We got this. Thanks for your help. If we need you, we'll call you." But they have a good Butch and Sundance kind of rapport. So
they do. She has a good rapport with a lot of people, and I think that's sort of what's one of the many things that is very charming about this book. Because she's been there her whole life, she's never traveled out, outside of Ischia. She's never traveled around Italy or the world.
She knows people.
She knows people, and her relationship with the priest, her relationship with the boat captain, her relationship with the women of the village,
and even with the mob guy. My favorite scene to write was with the mob guy, the head of the Gomorrah, where she basically asked, told him what she needed, without asking. It wasn't like, I need you to do this for me. She had done a favor for his father, which he didn't know what it was. He just knew that there was something between the two of them, that his father respected her and she respected him. So based on that, he said, I'll do whatever I'll take care of business for you. So she has friends on every side. And that was true of the real Nona. Nona just knew everybody on the island. And because she never gave out personal information or gossiped, people would come to her and confide in her and tell her things that you wouldn't normally. It's tough for the locals to trust the Carabinieri, because on an island, any kind of touristy island where crime is not rampant, the Carabinieri is sent there more for, aid, training, or, they're new on the force. But they're still tough and they're still strong and good cops. But there's really, to be honest, not a lot to do with them for them. But when you do see a Carabinieri, I still do it, and I'm in my 60s. If I see a Carabinieri approach me, it's like a regular cop approaches you, you're fine in Italy. If a Carabinieri approaches you, you go, oh God, I hope I didn't do anything wrong, because these guys are serious cops. They're not, you're either, you're not going to get a parking ticket, you're going to get 20 years. So something's up if they approach you. But usually they're, they walk the streets. They're very well respected, and I wanted to keep that respect as well, and not use him as kind of just a buffoon. He had to be a serious young man.
I love that. I love that. And Nisa, thank you for the great questions. And Nisa's an amazing bookstagrammer. She does a lot with friends in fiction, a lot of fabulous interviews in her own right. And Nisa, thank you so much for joining us today. Leslie, who shares that she is Greek, says it is true that hot drinks cool the body. So,
Oh,
Lorenzo, what one of the other things I really loved about the book is how you weave in these old, I don't want to say wives' tales, but these sort of historical beliefs and these, very charming local customs. So, because this is part of a series, do you have to save some of them to meet them out over future books, or how does that work? The local lore.
yeah, I used La Fattura in this one, which is, they warn you since I was my first week in Ischia. I was warned by my aunts, my nonna and cousins that if you go into someone's home and someone you don't know, and they offer you something to eat or drink, and they're not eating it or drinking it, don't go near it because anything can happen. And they
Yeah.
always use like an example, and that's what happened to your uncle Mario or your uncle whatever. And you wonder, like, and you're told this story. That there's a story famous in my family that my uncle, who did eat something or drink something at someone's house that he didn't know, was on his honeymoon in Florence visiting his sister who lived in Florence, and was in her kitchen when he suddenly woke up, like out of a trance, and said, "Why am I here? What am I doing here?" And she laughed. She goes, "What do you mean, why you're on your honeymoon?" And he put his head in his hands. He goes, "I'm married. Who did I marry?" And he literally didn't know the woman, barely knew her, and or claimed not to know her. And so you tell a young guy, I was 14 from New York, that story. And I wasn't drinking water from anybody, or just, I could know you for, you could be my blood relative. I'm not drinking it. So that stayed with us for a while. So I thought it would be a cool bit of business to put in the book. And they do believe it. And, I've heard more than one example that, that certain situations like that have happened. Now, something weird happened to me when I was about 16 or 17 on the island. My uncle has a big tourist company. So I worked for my cousins, and I, either when we were younger, would wash the buses and the cabs. So it happens to all of us. You probably had it. Like a friend of my cousin was dating some girl from Naples. And of course, she has a friend come in, and he wants you to take the friend to the movies. So then walk the friend home, and that's the end of the. So here in New York, that would be no big deal. You'd say, okay, I'll do it. Anyway, I took her to the movie, the friend. I don't remember her name. And I walked her home. Now, it's the streets where she was staying on were very dark. And she said, knowing that I was going to meet you, I wrote you a poem. And it was dark. And she had this folded piece of paper. She said, can I give you the poem? So I took the folded piece and I put it in the back pocket of my jeans. And, I walked her to her door. I said goodnight and thought that was the end of it. A couple of days later, my uncle comes running to me down at the port and said, did you go out with so-and-so a couple of days? I said, yeah, we went to a movie and I walked her home. He goes, did you take anything from her? I said, oh, yeah. She gave me this poem, which I hadn't even looked at. He goes, oh, you never take anything from a young girl. He said, in her head now, you accepted her as you're engaged. I said, no, that's ridiculous.
What?
Yeah, so basically we had to have a sit down. It turned out to be a bit of a scam. We sat down with her family, my uncles, my aunt, two of my aunts, and the guy, they looked offended. I accepted her poem, which I hadn't read. So my uncle explained, listen, he's a stranger to our island. He doesn't know any of these customs. It wasn't even a custom. But anyway, what they worked out, my uncle said, you guys, your family owns the fruit stands that are, because the tour buses would come all the way around the island. Said, you own some of those fruit stands we see on the road. He said, how about this? Over the next 2 summers, when my buses are heading back, I'll have them stop in front of your fruit stands for 10 minutes, no more, no less. I'm not asking them to buy fruit. If they buy, they buy. If they don't, they don't. But the profit is yours if you agree for 2 summers. But in return, we take this poem, and this didn't happen. And that was the agreement that was made. So I don't know how far they would have pushed it. What, are we going to go to court over this? But it was a wake up call. And, I got yelled at by my aunts, don't take anything from anybody. And I was really ticked off at my cousin. I said, "Who did you ask me to take to this movie?" He goes, "I don't know. I'm sorry." And he broke up with that her friend as well. And but it was a lesson learned. It's very much a modern island. At the same time, it has this sort of underground medieval traditions, the stregas, which I think I used in the next book. The strega, the fattura, this girl who gives you this poem. So I was really kind of nervous about taking anything from anybody.
Did you read the poem, Lorenzo?
No, I never have read the poem, and it got torn up and burned at their apartment.
I will wonder for the rest of my life what the poem said. I'm trying to think
If
of
it
what
said
rhymes
anything,
with
it was just a
Lorenzo.
folded sheet of paper. It could have been just, roses are red, violets are blue. I don't know, but
You took me to the movies and now I love you.
yeah, exactly, that was it. And
Bizarre.
now we're married. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
You know what's interesting though is your aunts and your aunties over there are telling you, oh, don't take food or drink from people who aren't drinking or eating it themselves. But actually, like that's a good rule of thumb because at first when you hear it, you think, oh, how bizarre, how medieval. But over here, people get roofied all the time. So
exactly. Yes, they would not get roofied in Ischia if you followed my aunt's advice. Yes. Um,
right, because
even when I took them out when my mother moved there in 1988 after my father died, and she lived there until she died in '04. And there was three sisters. Unfortunately, all four of them passed away. But I took them all
oh,
to dinner one night,
sorry.
and they hated going to restaurants. They had this theory: in my kitchen, I know what I'm eating. It's like, okay, fine.
Right.
I just want you to, I had them pick the restaurant because they knew the owner, they knew his son. Nona never went to a restaurant to eat. She never ate anything outside of her kitchen. But
Yeah.
I said, so I'm not going to drag Nona along because that never happens. But I took the four of them to dinner, and they were very leery. They knew the pizza guy, they knew his father, they knew his husband, his kids, so they trusted him with the pizza. Then it came time to order. I ordered some wine, and it was a waiter they had not seen before. It was a kid they hired from Naples for the summer. And one of my aunts said, "I don't know if we should be drinking this wine." I said, it's a closed bottle. He just popped the cork in front of us. I said, well, he could put something in the cork. It could drip into the bottle. I said, I'm drinking it. I don't care what happens. By the end of it, you're so stressed out over like, should I eat this? Should I drink this? And not everybody, I said, is looking to poison us.
Yeah.
And she said, you never know. You just never know.
Why do you think they have this fear of being poisoned? Like,
I guess it goes back to when they were kids or, passed on to them. And I think the war played a lot into it because the island was bombed quite frequently and the water was, if you drank the water, to this day, you can't drink the water. But if you drank it back in the 40s and 50s, you would get really ill, violently ill. And
ooh.
so I don't know what happens if you drink it now. I mean, nobody drinks tap water in Ischia. Or
Wow.
most of Italy, I think, for that matter. I don't remember them ever. They always ask you if you go to a restaurant, do you want mineral water or the San Pellegrino, and flat or mineral, a flat or
Yeah.
gastado, and so I think there's that came out of everything. A lot of it comes out of the war.
Interesting.
My mother, everything with my mother was World War II because, she had a sad go of it. By the time she was 24, my mom lost her husband, a 6-month-old baby, and a brother in the war.
Oh my God.
And then moved, her husband they're all stationed in Salerno. And then she moved back to Ischia with a 2-year-old son. So I think the war colored everything. This not trusting people, not trusting. It sort of extended to food. I mean, Nona never had these issues because if she came to your house, she would not drink anything or have anything. She was just there to talk to you about whatever she needed to talk to you about. So I do think a lot of it grew out of the war, and part of it grew out of these superstitions that have lasted decades. I mean, the stregas, I'm fascinated with stregas, and even when I was a kid in New York,
And Lorenzo, tell everyone in case people don't know, fill us in on what stregas are.
I mean, it means witch in Italian, but you go to a strega and it's usually an old woman who's never left this dark room. She has a huge bowl in front of her that has water, oil, and In New York, they have the eyes of a. They go to the butcher to get the eyes of a cow or eyes of a lamb or a goat, whatever. And she basically tells you. I mean, what I hated about it was when I was a kid. If I complained one time to my father about a headache, all I wanted. I was about 8 or 9. I wanted like St. Joseph's aspirin for children. That's all I wanted. He said, "No, we have to go to the Strega," which will who. So we go to the Strega. You sit down. You pay her. I think it was $2 in New York. It's about €2 in Italy. And she puts your hands in the water. She looks at you and basically said, "Well, the headache is being caused because you're saying things about." In my case, she said, "Well, you're saying bad things about Mrs. Antonelli," which I was not. And your father slaps you in the back of the head. "Why are you talking about Mrs. Antonelli?" I said, "I'm not talking about." And in Ischia, they tell you, they'll tell you feuds that are going on. They know, and what's fascinating to me about the Stregas of Ischia, they never leave the room. You never see them on the street. You never see them but yet they know everything that's going on because people go to them daily. And there's like 7 or 8 people a day she sees who go to them with marital troubles, money troubles, relationship issues, and all of this stuff. So over time, she knows who's cheating on who's. So you got to be careful around the Strega. And so I find them fascinating. They're all elderly. They're very nice. Nona was friends with a Strega, but never went to see one and trusted her to, she just basically would ask questions. Now Stregas have to be very private. They're like they think of themselves as priests in a confessional booth, so they don't tell you. If you ask the Strega, "Listen, I understand. Sarah came to see you yesterday and told you this, this, and that." She would never admit to anything you said, but she could give you hints to guide you along the way. So, I mean, Nona, I think it's in the next book. Nona does use a Strega to further her investigation.
This is fascinating. So, Lorenzo, how does it work? Are you born to be a strega, or you apprentice yourself to one, or how does one
I think
become?
generally in East gets handed down.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be from mother to daughter. It can be mother to niece, mother to
Wow.
cousin, some blood relative. And
See.
here, I think here it's, I don't want to say, I guess sadly, yeah, it's the tradition is dying out in a way.
Yeah.
Um, but there it's very much alive, mostly in southern Italy. I don't think northern Italy is big on Stregas, but
Yeah.
southern Italy is big on all those kind of religious superstitions. I mean, her room is always dark and heavy curtains, and
Mm.
it's for if you need a character in a novel, that's a pretty cool character to have. I think I've used the Strega in 2 or 3 of my previous books as well.
I
I'm
love that.
obsessed. I'm not obsessed. I'm fascinated by Strega.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this local lore and the history that you see carried down generations and over millennia is so beautifully captured by you. Um, and so many people are raving about that. So Tess Gerritsen, who came on last summer and is coming back again in June with her brand new book,
He's very good.
raves that this is an utterly delightful tale starring one of the most charming amateur sleuths ever created. Nonna Maria, and the case of the missing bride is so delicious that it will make you want to pack your bags and move to Italy. Rave review there from the incredible New York Times bestselling author Tess Gerritsen. I also loved this review saying that this one from Camila Trincheri. She says that Lorenzo has written a suspenseful tale while bringing the history, traditions, and colorful characters of the island of Ischia to life. The indomitable Nonna Maria shines throughout. Bravo. Putting some other wonderful blurbs and reviews here for everyone to check out in the comments. Book list raving that nostalgia for Ischia's simpler way of life, nearly lost in the face of the fast-paced modern world, combined successfully with a suspenseful plot and a feisty heroine who is as kind as she is steely. That I felt like really captured Nona. What did you think, Lorenzo?
Yeah, and it's also nice that people have responded to know. I mean, you don't know when you're writing. You're sitting alone in the room. And, I mean, for me, it's great. I get to hang out with Nona for 3, 4 more months.
Oh,
But
yes.
yeah, but to have people respond to her the way they have is kind of it's very gratifying.
Well, your our fellow Italian author Lisa Scottolini, who was just on a couple weeks ago with her latest "What Happened to the Bennets," raves that you are one of her favorite writers in the world. Congratulations on that. Jeffery Deaver's calling you one of the best. Also, amazing, wonderful praise. Steve Berry saying a writer who has earned his spot at the top echelon of suspense masters. So let's end with this question. Lorenzo, what do you think? What have you learned over the course of your career? What is the key to being a master of suspense, a suspense master?
Oh, it's just it's like anything, any other kind of writing. I mean, I was very fortunate when I was a kid to meet Pete Hamill, who was a big influence on me. I started in newspapers, and Pete gave me a whole. I wrote him a letter when I was about 16, and then I ended up working for him, with him rather, at the Daily News when I was a copy boy. And I think basically is just I think there's a couple of things. One, know exactly who you're writing for. Like at the Daily News, like if I would never work at the Times because no one I knew read the Times. But with the Daily News, I knew exactly at that time it had 2.5 million circulation a day. I mean, think about it, that's a huge number. But I knew exactly who those people were, those working people. I grew up with them, and the same thing is true of the people of the books I've written for. I've written is I write for people that I think will enjoy the book, people I've known and grown. Now, sometimes the circle expands. You get lucky with a certain book, and a lot of people buy it. But it's always the core group of those people who tend to be working class, and for them, I know I need to make them sit up, and they don't want a lot of what Elmore Leonard used to call the stuff that nobody cares about. The dark clouds and the trees that were made in Thailand but moved here. Nobody cares about it. So I know they want it fast. They don't have a lot of time. And they don't have a lot of dough. So for them to buy your book, it has to be a page turner for them to read. It has to be a quick read. And that's the kind of books I like to write. So the suspense for them is to be honest with them, be honest with the reader. Don't give them, you know, don't do word games. I mean, Pete always said, don't play word games with them. Don't try to show off how smart you are, or just tell the story. And that's the I think what I try to do is just tell the story, and I try to do it in a way that I understand it, and that I think
Mm.
my readers understand it. And my favorite fan letter, I got this years ago, and I actually framed it as Italian guy obviously wrote it, and he said, "I love your books because I don't need a dictionary to read them." So so it's great, so the suspense is to make them guess. All right, so now what happens? So now what happens? Now what happens? And that's for me. It's a lot of fun because I don't know what happens. As I'm writing, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, someday you can get caught. Because I come in, I looking at chapter 6. I don't know what chapter 6 is going to be, and then you have one of those amazing days when you look up and you've written 7 pages of chapter 6, and things happen that you had no intention of having happened in the book. That's one of the beauty of
Mm.
writing books, which I kind of enjoy. It's kind of it's an interesting thing. It's a strange feeling to have. Like you'll finish it and you walk away saying, I had no idea that I was going to write that today. None. But it moves the plot, and now you suddenly are playing with a bunch of other things. And then, like everything else, you have to read. You have to watch as many shows and movies as you can, and read as many books and newspapers and magazines that you can get, and travel if you can, and listen to people. I was fortunate on both ends, in New York and in Ischia in Italy. Both my friends and my families there were great storytellers. They weren't well educated, but they could tell a great story, and that kind of filters into your head as well.
I love that. Lorenzo, so can we take it from that you are not a plotter, you're a pantser, you follow the story where it goes and you don't know where it's gonna go?
I mean, I kind of have an idea how I want to end it, and I have an idea, obviously, how it gets going. But for me, somewhere in the course of the book, and some books it happens earlier, some books it happens later, the book kind of takes a life of its own, which is kind of interesting for me. Like this Nonna, the first Nonna Maria book, it was around page 75 when I felt like, it's almost I'm on autopilot. She's driving it. I'm not driving it. The second one, it was a little further deeper into it. It was like page 130 or something. Some books take longer to get that feel, and some books click from the beginning. But yeah, I don't usually. I mean, I have an idea where I'm going. When I do scripts, you obviously have to have the whole thing plotted out. I mean, you can't go on. When I was working on Law and Order, I couldn't tell them, "Hey, I know how this works." But you had to do beat sheets and plot it out. But that the night before, the night when I'm writing the next morning, at night I'll watch a movie or show. I keep a pad next to me, and you're always working on the book, so you write things down. And you notice that I've noticed like a few nights I've written like the next 2 chapters that I'm planning to write the next day. That's a good feeling, because you go to bed saying, I got it. The worst thing to do is go to bed, not write it down, and you guarantee you have forgotten it come the morning, and that drives you nuts. So yeah, it's mostly flying by the seat of my pants, but I made it through. I just handed in my 14th book, so far it seems to be working. Yeah.
Congratulations on your 14th book, Lorenzo. Isabel is saying there's no question, but she just wanted to comment that she loves Rocco the Book Lover's Instagram page. So that's your new baby bulldog. She says he gives us great updates on his life and Lorenzo's life. So we have a fan here for Rocco the baby bulldog.
He's a little gossipy little guy, I think. He gives up information.
I love that. I love that. Well, what a perfect note to end on. Lorenzo, thank you so much. Oh, sorry, we have one more. Anelli says, it sounds like you entertain yourself as you write your books and then your audience as you read. Lorenzo, are you entertained by Nonna and her adventures?
Yeah, I'm having a good time writing them. They're a lot of I mean, to be honest, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's an island I've spent so many years on, visiting and living there, using characters I know and making them, fictional. Yeah, I mean, what's not to like it? You're setting it in a place that is home to you. I mean, I almost there were many times where, as a kid, I wanted to live there. I was thinking seriously of moving there, and I could move there tomorrow. I mean, I would be at home there. So yeah, those are entertaining and those are fun. I mean, the darker books I've written in the past, also in their own way, are fun, but a different kind of fun. Nonna here she's just a cool old lady to hang out with. She always was, so why wouldn't she be? And she was very funny in her own way, and I hope that humor shows up. It was a dry humor. And she's a great character. So I enjoy hanging out with her and the pirate and the Presidente. It's like this rogues gallery in my office here. So and I'm glad the audience, if they like it, that's icing on the cake. That's great.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us today, Lorenzo. And thank you, everybody, for all of for spending some time with us today on your afternoon, getting to know Lorenzo, getting to know Nonna Maria, and getting ready to read about her solving the case of the missing bride. So I'm going to drop the link now so you can order your copy. And Leslie saying, thank you, Lorenzo. Order your copy and hang out with Nonna right here. I'm going to pop the link in the comments so you can hang out with Nonna as well. Isabel says, thank you for hosting us. Isabel, my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And everybody grab your copy of Nonna right now so you can hang out with this cool old lady, espresso swilling, wine drinking, La Fattora avoiding, a very cool Nonna Maria. Leslie, thank you so much for being here. Truly appreciate you as always. All right, everybody, I'll be back at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. with May Cobb and B.A. Shapiro. So come back tonight. I will see you tonight for Mystery Monday, because Mondays can be murder. Have a great day, everybody.